Okay. Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. I am here today chatting with Jennifer Colwell about her story, A Bit of Bad News. Jennifer is an award-winning flash fiction author who was blessed with the opportunity to ditch corporate America in order to take care of her kids, pursue her dream of writing, and occasionally make the house look presentable. She enjoys romantic comedy and loves books that make you feel good after reading them. When not writing, she's busy reading, ignoring the laundry, and wrangling her husband, two kids, and an undisclosed number of pets at her home in Southwest Missouri. All right, let's start, Jennifer, with my favorite question of all time.
Okay.
What was the inspiration behind your story?
Well, I was excited to see that this issue was all about, the Snowden theme, and so I guess the standard Snowden is in a cozy cabin in the woods or something like that. But for whatever reason, I thought, well, I mean, a lot of people have to work, so what if they got Snowden at work? So back in the day, I used to. Work at a banking software company, and that was, about an hour away from my house. And so, definitely on days when the weather was a little iffy or, something was coming in, and you know how the weather people are, they're always projecting like twice as much as we actually get. But yeah, I'd always be really nervous if I had to, make that commute. And so I just thought, well, let's just put these two people together in an office setting, and they're the last people left for the day, and see what happens. So,
I love that. And I thought it was funny because me being a Georgia girl, when it snows here, even if it's just flurries, it's like a catastrophe and we all like kind of freak out. So it was kind of fun seeing these two people who were stuck at work and how they made the best of it. Now, did you intend for it to kind of be a rivals to lovers situation? Or were you just writing the story and you're like, oh my gosh, she thinks that he's trying to compete with her?
I started out trying to do, kind of like a rivals to lovers thing. But as I was writing him, I was like, oh, I really like him. I mean, he's a likable guy. So I kind of toned that down a little bit in the beginning. But why else would he be there late at night unless he was trying to go for that promotion? So
I love that. Well, since we mentioned that trope, I'm curious, do you have a trope that you find yourself kind of gravitating towards when you're writing stories?
well, I don't know if I gravitate toward it when I'm writing stories, but when I'm reading, I really enjoy the second chance romance for whatever reason. So that's one of my favorites. And I think, forced proximity is good. And you probably see that a lot in all these Snowden stories. So that's fun too.
Yeah, I have to admit I'm a fan of a good force proximity. So this is obviously a contemporary, but I'm curious, is that your favorite subgenre of romance, or do you actually like reading a different subgenre?
I'd say that contemporary rom-com is definitely my favorite. If I can find a good book that has a cartoon cover on it, then, it makes me happy. So,
Now, I am curious because, I grew up, I was born in the 90s and grew up in the early 2000s where rom-coms were like super popular as far as like movies. And you
yes.
constantly saw rom-coms and they kind of petered out. So I'm curious as a writer, do you feel like because they petered out in movies, that's why we as readers tend to gravitate towards them in our books because we want like a good, lighthearted story.
I think, especially in the last couple decades, I mean, anything that kind of makes us feel better when we're done. I mean, I like to think about it as literary cotton candy, a little sweet fluff that just makes you feel good. I think, oh man, a long time ago, I was into Janet Ivanovich, who wrote, like the Stephanie Plum books and everything. But before that, she wrote a whole bunch of like romances. And she probably admitted that, they maybe not her best work. They went out of print pretty quickly. But she has a quote saying that, life is a lot like peanut butter and jelly most of the time. And romance novels are like birthday cake. And so it's always nice to have a few, romance novels lying around to be the birthday cake when life is all peanut butter and jelly. So,
Ooh, I love that comparison so much. That's perfect.
I probably butchered the quote, but I've always, enjoyed that.
I mean, as long as we get the gist, it's okay.
Exactly, right?
So tell us, since we're speaking of rom-coms and the birthday cake of life, tell me about a few sweet romances that you've read recently and you like really enjoyed.
Well, so I went through my closet because I've got stacks and stacks of books. So some that I've read recently is I've got Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. I think I've probably mentioned this one before because it's one of my favorites. But it's basically about a divorced mom who kind of gets a second chance to just have a nice light summer romance that maybe develops into something more. So that one is fun. And then here's another one that I really enjoyed. It's called If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. And that's basically a Cinderella retelling.
Ooh.
And what's fun about that one is so the protagonist, Cindy, is into shoe design. And, through whatever events unfold, she gets put on this reality dating show called Before Midnight. So they kind of put the whole Cinderella story into kind of a modern reality TV show type situation.
Oh, that sounds intriguing.
Oh, it's so fun. I love that book so much.
And I've heard it been said that we never really write like a unique story. We're all writing like a different form of like a classic story, but it has been so fun seeing authors take these fairy tales that we like grew up with and turn them into something kind of unique and interesting. So I'm going to put you on the spot. If you were to do that, if you were going to sit down and you're like, I'm going to write a fairy tale retelling, what fairy tale do you think that you would pick that you're like, oh, I just got to do something with this one?
Oh man, that is a hard one. Um, it's not a fairy tale, and I don't think I'd ever really do it. But I always thought it'd be kind of fun to rewrite The Great Gatsby in more of a
Oh,
contemporary setting, like with some kind of like social media mogul or something like that. Um, but as far as fairy tales, I really like the way that Disney did Rapunzel, and I don't know if you read like much like sci-fi or anything, but Marissa Meyer had the whole Cinder series, and so in that one, Cinderella was a cyborg, which was pretty fun.
ooh,
So
oh,
there's a
interesting.
lot of things you can do if you get creative, I imagine.
Yeah, I would say I remember a few years ago we did a fairy tale issue, and it was interesting to see kind of some of the stuff that people came up with. And I was like, I thought I was creative. And then I read these stories, and I'm like, maybe I'm not as creative as I thought I was. But anyway, but speaking of writing, you're a mother and you have kids to take care of, and we all know that kids, have the are a big responsibility, but also you actually like your kids and you actually want to spend time with your kids and like do stuff with them. So how do you balance, wanting to sit down and write and to like let this creativity flow out of you, but also spend some time with your family?
Well, I'll have to say that I am lucky in that my kids are getting older. I mentioned to you earlier that my daughter turned 15 this weekend. And so today we went to the DMV, got her learner's permit. So again, I won't be playing chauffeur, forever. But, she likes to ride horses. My son plays golf. These are really, oh, and she runs track too. So lots of sitting and downtime. And so it's nice to just kind of, either have a small notebook or, your cell phone or something like that, just to have around if the inspiration strikes, just to between all the activities, get bits and pieces in. I mean, they really add up more than you think they do when you first consider it. And I think I saw something online that maybe you've been playing with dictation. Is that right?
I have.
How's that going for you?
I actually kind of like it. It does take a little bit of time to clean up whenever the AI bot doesn't understand my southern drawl. But it does, I do get a lot of words in faster and I'm able to kind of multitask. I try to do that with other things and I like fail spectacularly, like something goes wrong. But like with dictation, I'm just talking as I work. And I think one of the reasons it works for me is I'm a verbal processor, which is a fancy way of saying I talk to myself like a lot. So I'm used to doing something while talking. And I have to say, it's been kind of a game changer. It's made me feel a lot
Hey.
better about my productivity.
Well, that's fantastic. I've played around with it a little bit. I don't know that I could dictate a whole scene, but it is nice whenever, it's like 11 o'clock at night and you're about to go to bed and you're like, oh, I just got this great idea and I don't want to lose it. So,
Yeah. Well, what do you use? Do you just dictate into your phone, into like a notes app, or have you tried like a special app that they advertise on the App Store?
I mean, honestly, I just use the Notes app most of the time.
Mhm.
How about you?
I've done I have an Android, so I have Google Keep Notes, and I've done it in there. And I've also done it in this app called Easy Voice Recorder. And then
Oh,
you
yeah, I've
can
heard of that.
yeah, and you can import it into Easy Transcription Service, and that's just cool because you can actually listen to it as you're like looking at the words, and then you can correct them and be like, I was actually saying this. Um, so that's been neat. So yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah, it's always fun when we get to try new things. It's because do you find that your process has changed over the years as you write more and more?
Yeah, it's always evolving. It's like,
Mhm.
something that will work really good for a while. Then there's like a schedule change, or maybe, you've taken some time off and it's hard to get back into the process. And you just have to kind of play around and, see, well, maybe that doesn't work for this season. Maybe something else will. So, yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Well, are you a plotter, a pantser, or are you kind of somewhere in the middle?
That is a good question. I'm still trying to figure that out. I know that originally I was, hardcore pantser, and then I ended up writing this story that was like 250,000 words and just kind of rambled all over the place. So I wouldn't recommend that. And so I've tried plotting more, and it does kind of keep me on task more. There's less to cut, I'll say for sure, but it's kind of harder to. I don't know. It seems like I miss the just, what, to heck with it. I'm just going to write something and see where it goes. So probably somewhere in between.
Yeah, I can feel that. So when you sat down and was going to write this story, I know you said you had an idea at the beginning for them to be a little bit more rivals. Did you actually plot out the story, or did you just have like a seeding of idea? I think they would be trapped at work and they're rivals, and then you just sat down to see what they would do next.
I think there's more the second. You just kind of start with a seed of an idea and see where it goes. The one thing I love about flash fiction is it's such a challenge. You've got these constraints to work with. And I think that's when you almost get most of your creativity, where it's not like you can choose absolutely anything and it could be whatever length or something like that. It's like, okay, you've got 100 words and have to write a story with the prompt of Apple. And so you're like, okay, well, how am I going to do this? So, yeah, flash fiction is definitely a lot of fun.
I have to agree with that, but I'm also a little biased. But so now what's the best piece of writing advice that anyone has given you?
Well, I've got a couple, and I've probably said them before, but one of my favorites is that every first draft is perfect because all it has to do is exist. And For all those perfectionists out there, myself included, I mean, we just kind of struggle over every single word sometimes, but it's nice to remember, hey, it just has to get out on the page and then you can edit it later. And then, kind of along the same lines, I think there's a quote from Louis L'Amour that's something like, writing is like turning on the faucet. The water doesn't run until, you turn it on, or something like that. So there's so many times where it's hard to get started, but once you actually just sit down in the chair and say, I'm going to do this, then the words just kind of start flowing. So,
I love that because I know, like, when I first started writing, and I still sometimes struggle with this, I compare my first draft to a finished book. And like, the more I write and the more I talk to other authors, I realize I need to stop doing that because it was never meant to look like the finished book. Like, one author this weekend that I adore, she mentioned that she was like, I think she was over 20,000 words into her story and realized it needed to be completely different. And she had to like go scrap all those words. I'm like,
oh no.
I've read her books and they're amazing and they're so well crafted and plotted. So like, it was kind of like boggling my mind. I'm like, oh, so she does that too? And it's not just me. It's a little
Yes.
bit freeing. And I have to say that's one good thing about a writing community. Have you found yourself a writing community of people that you can talk to as you go through this?
I've got a few folks. I've got a book coach who helps me a lot.
Ooh,
Yeah, she's probably part book coach, part therapist. I send her like Chuck Norris memes all the time. But yeah, she's really good to help me keep me motivated because, again, sometimes life gets in the way. And then
yeah.
I've got a few writing buddies that, I like to reach out to every now and then, just keep in touch with. And it's nice to, have somebody else who knows what you're talking about because sometimes friends and family are always supportive, but they're like, oh, when's your book coming out? You're like, maybe in 5 years, we'll see.
Man, I feel that. Okay, before we go, I need to throw out a funsy, kind of nonsensical question.
Okay.
Because we are both Jennifers. And I'm
Yes.
curious, Jane Austen had a character named Jane. She was a very sweet, well loved character. So I'm just curious, would you ever consider naming a character Jennifer, or would that just feel like way too weird to you?
Well, I couldn't name a character Jennifer, and not necessarily just because it's my name, but I'm sure you can relate that growing up, there was always like 6 or 7 Jennifers in my class. So it's like, oh, it's Gen C, Gen H, Gen U, Jenny, and, Jenna. And so, I mean, there's just way too many personalities that I probably, put on that character. And then also, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's not a popular name for like babies anymore. So before long, people are going to say, oh, that's an old lady name. I was like, well, when I was little, it was not. So,
Yeah, in fact, we were talking one day, we have a ton of Spark authors named Jennifer, and we were sitting there like counting them off one day, and I was like, man, this is very popular. I was like, we should just like take over, do like a takeover of the Jennifers. But you know what, you're right, because I've been seeing some of those trends, and it's like the names that were considered old when I was a kid are like now coming back in the fashion, and then like names that I thought were like hip and modern, which I probably just aged myself saying that they were hip. They're now like kind of like going out, and it's like really weird to find myself surrounded by a bunch of Ethels and Waylands, which like they're nice names, but I always have associated them with like older people, and it's just kind of like what? But yeah, you're right. You have to be careful about
yes.
dating your stories. And that's one frustrating thing about contemporary, I feel like, is eventually
Yes.
it's going to be dated. But man, reading them is just so much fun.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, well, that could totally happen to me.
Yes, exactly. Oh man. All right. Well, before we end, where is the best place for readers to find you and to keep up with your writing journey?
Okay, well, I'm not super active on social media. I do have a Twitter/X account. I think
Mhm.
it's at J Colwell Writes. And I think I've got an Instagram account with maybe one post. I don't know. My kids have to help me with that. So it's not much to look at right now, maybe someday. And I am excited because I'm hopefully going to have a website soon. But as of right now, it is still in process. So not sure that that helps, but I will be out there on the internet someday.
That's exciting. Something to look forward to. All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. I'll make sure to put some links in the description so you can go and read this story and another story that she has written for us before, because thankfully she is a returning author and hopefully she will be one again in the future. Um, don't forget, any story that you read on Spark is free and sweet, with no explicit scenes. So you can read it with your grandma looking over your shoulder. You can read it in the grocery store. No one will know. Anyways, y'all have a wonderful week. And as always, don't stop reading.